Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam and red is my favorite primary color, apart from blue and yellow. And today we are here to discuss the inevitable fate of a certain redhead. No, it's not Eustace Kid, not Rockstar, and certainly not alternate universe Red Afro Gaimon. No. I'm afraid that this video is all about Shanks, and I'm even more afraid that he is destined for death in this series. Because Shanks, well, he's a pretty cool dude, however he is not a bird, a single father, or a pink-headed vegetable, nor does his name begin with the letter P, and therefore Shanks is not immune from death unless his secret birth name is Shanks. If that does turn out to be the case, then I shall reevaluate this entire video, but I'm not counting on it. Because currently Shanks is saddled with quite an alarming amount of death flags. In fact, at this point I'd say that Shanks has more flags than the headquarters of the United Nations. It is an impressive collection, but not one that bodes well for him. So let's have a bit of discussionment regarding the death of Shanks. And it's all going to begin with a quick round of Shank, or Shanks, a very simple minigame, the rules of which are as follows. Within this box, you are going to find one of three items: a lamb shank, a prison shank, or a shanks. And it is going to be your job to guess which of these items it will be. Should you guess incorrectly, then your punishment will be to subscribe to the Grand Line Review, thus resulting in consistent injections of One Piece culture administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you are correct, then you will get to eat whatever was in the box. So which will it be? Shank, or Shanks? Make your choice now and we shall reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1, and bam, it was a lamb shank. Nom. So if you guessed incorrectly, then you know the thing to do, and please do say hi in the comments below if you are a new member of the Grand Fleet. Welcome. With that said, let us raise our first death flag to half-mast, and it is the idea of necessary dramatic stakes. Following Wano, we have one final saga of One Piece left to embark on. There's no telling how many arcs that saga may consist of, but this story block is going to be the end, and as such, it will be a very personal story for Luffy, all about achieving his dreams and stuff like that. But in order to do that, he's going to need, and I have a lighting cue for this, dramatic stakes. Which is actually a bit of a weird thing for One Piece. When you think about it, Luffy almost never has personal stakes in any arc because he's very rarely the emotional focus. Currently, the only arcs that purely center around Luffy are the beginning of Romance Dawn and the entire Paramount War saga. And in each case, Luffy needed a current flame of drama to burn, by which I mean unfortunate things happening to other unfortunate people in order to impact Luffy. For example, in Romance Dawn, that would be Shanks losing an arm. In the Paramount War, that would be the impending execution and eventual death of Ace, and even in the post-war arc, we have the death of Sabo. For a final saga or final arc, Luffy is almost certainly going to be the emotional center once more, so we're going to need to amp things up a bit in the dramatic stakes department. Of course, that doesn't necessarily need to be Shanks. There are other possibilities as of right now, like say Sabo, or even using one of the other Straw Hats. However, I think it's personally much more likely to be Shanks when we consider every other flag. And speaking of considering flags, has anybody ever seen the flag of the North Caucasian Emirate? It was a state that existed for like 6 months during the Russian Civil War, and their flag is just a smiley face. But our second death flag to raise with Shanks is the Blackbeard Connection. In many ways, the story of One Piece is equal parts the tale of Monkey D. Luffy and Marshall D. Teach. These two are the ones who are set up to be fighting it out for the crown of Pirate King. However, Blackbeard's strongest connection in the series is not to Luffy, but in fact to Shanks. And I have a whole different video exploring this connection, which I highly recommend checking out. It's downright sinister just how entwined the stories of Shanks and Blackbeard are. In fact, the only two situations where we generally see Shanks is either when he's admiring Luffy's progress or when he's showing grave concern for Blackbeard. Shanks is still probably the only person in this world who understands the endgame danger of Teach, and this connection is going to have to come to a conclusion one way or the other. And Blackbeard has a well-documented habit of making those conclusions quite fatal. See, for example, his threads with Thatch, Ace, and Whitebeard, because Blackbeard is a certified corpse crafting contraption who has effectively stated that fighting Shanks as part of his grand plan for the future. And if Shanks were to die as part of this plan, I really could not think of a more appropriate way to fall, because it gives Luffy an enhanced personal stake in bringing down Blackbeard. The fact that he defeated and captured Ace is not enough. The fact that Blackbeard is also vying to become the Pirate King is not enough. We are going to need something that is going to rock Luffy to his rubber core, a fresh and painful wound to make this whole Blackbeard business really resonate. Otherwise, the dramatic stakes are going to consist primarily of the fact that Blackbeard doesn't shower. You've captured my brother, you want to do the thing that I want to do, and you stink. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it as, you captured my brother, you killed my mentor, and now you want to claim my dream, and also why do you smell like that? Does that guarantee Shanks will die? No, it doesn't. The emotional need specifically in regards to Blackbeard can be achieved in other ways, but these flags are starting to line up in a very unfavorable formation for Mr. Shanks. What? How was that so difficult to say? Mr. Shanks. These flags are starting to line up in a very unfavorable formation for Mr. Shanks. Got it. Now I'll just make a note to delete that previous part and no one will know any better. But our next flag is going to be the ongoing motif of generational shift. One of the things I love most about One Piece is that it is a very slow burn story consisting of the rising and falling of generations. The whole pre-time skip era culminated in the end of one generation and the ascension of another. Whitebeard passed away, Sengoku retired, Garp retired, sort of, and in their absence the worst generation took to the stage of the new world. Now Shanks' generation falls in between those two and it's next in line to fade into history. By the end of One Piece I firmly believe that Luffy's generation, which oddly enough does include Blackbeard despite his age, but I believe that his generation will be the one standing atop the world. However, I'm not sure if that's possible with a figure like Shanks still in existence, at least not in the role that he currently fills with the power he currently wields. Should everything spiral into chaos and go to general hell, Shanks is the natural leader, a powerful rallying point to prevent truly evil things and people from happening. But Shanks is not the protagonist and we need to move that rallying point to Luffy, which is very relevant for our next flag, that being balance. Nobody told me that Shanks was a clown. However, I have no choice but to assume that he is because his sense of balance is perfect. Throughout the series, he's acted as more of a diplomat than a pirate, such as when he warned Whitebeard about Blackbeard, or even stuff like organizing meetings with certain elder stars. He's also the one who prevented Kaido from attacking the Whitebeard pirates, plus he stopped the entire Paramount War. Shanks is, historically, pretty much the only factor that has stopped our One Piece Jenga tower from collapsing. However, like all Jenga, there will come a time where we do need that tower to collapse. I didn't think about this because I have to go and clean all of these up. Primarily so that it can be rebuilt through Luffy and all of that fun Joy Boy, Sun God, Dawn of the World style prophecies stuff that's all very vague. And Shanks, very unfortunately, stands in the way of that. He's a representative of the current way of life and an active part of the established power structure as an Emperor of the Sea. And it's very hard to demolish a building when you cannot break its strongest support. So whether it's death or something not deathy, Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates will need to be removed. But death does still remain prime as a possibility, especially with our next flag being that Shanks is a mentor figure. Mentors and parental types do not have a great track record in One Piece. They exist to inspire and drive our protagonists and sometimes even our antagonists actually. But a big part of accomplishing that narrative goal is the idea of inherited will, which generally occurs through death. Think of characters like Kuina, Belmare, Hiruluk, Nico Olvia, Tom Fisher Tiger, Rocinante, and so on and so forth. There's a lot. It's the idea of carrying out the legacy of someone else because they are unable to do it themselves. Something that Luffy arguably already has with the legacy of Ace, but something that could be significantly enhanced with the specter of Shanks. I should also point out that not all mentors are destined to die. Zeph is a pretty fantastic example of a living mentor who seems to be on the path for a lovely and peaceful life, but then again, Zeph also isn't an active Emperor of the Sea, throwing himself into grand global conflicts. So the situations are slightly different to say the least. Also, the Zeph-style lingering mentors are extraordinarily rare. We could probably count them all on one hand, but this does flag another issue, which when dyed red also turns into a scary death flag. And that is the concept of the Straw Hat. Now the Straw Hat itself is pretty meaningless to Luffy anyway. Forgetting that it was once owned by Roger, to Luffy it serves purely as a representation of his promise to Shanks to return it when he becomes a great pirate. But we do have a bit of a problem here, because it is not going to be easy to return said hat if Shanks has passed on, although I would strongly argue that that's how it should be. While it may only hold the meaning of personal promise to Luffy, this is a profoundly important generational artifact. Through the Marijois revelation, it's implied that the Straw Hat is a symbol that has endured potentially a millennia of just being passed onwards and onwards from one generation to the next. And we do have a pretty great thing going here. The hat went from Roger to Shanks to Luffy in perfect generational sequence. So there's something a bit off about the idea of the hat then going back to Shanks. If anything, it should continue to be passed forward to the generation after Luffy. And one of my favorite ideas surrounding this would be to give the hat to Maki Makino's child, which may very well also be Shanks's baby, but that's an entirely different discussion. Like, maybe we'll do a video where we get Shanks to take a paternity test and discover once and for all if he is in fact the baby daddy. My overall point being that the only way for the Straw Hat to keep traveling forward is if Luffy is unable to return it to Shanks, of which death is really the only possible option for that scenario. Let's now get into some inevitable concerns though. The biggest one is probably that I think a lot of One Piece fans might feel quite shortchanged if Luffy and Shanks never have their reunion moment. That is the thing that we've been building up to since chapter 1, even more so than the idea of finding the One Piece or becoming the Pirate King. Those things are actually quite secondary to the promise between Luffy and Shanks. And even though, yes, I am pretty sold on our red-headed mentor dying, I would also feel quite gypped if he and Luffy never had that reunion in one way or another. I think it's definitely possible to have both though. There's no reason why Luffy can't reunite with Shanks under some sort of dramatic circumstances, sort of like how he reunited with Ace during the Paramount War. It gave the brothers a triumphant, amazing moment before promptly snuffing out the flame of Ace and having that go on to be a profound driving force for Luffy. So it's definitely possible to have both a reunion and a death. They are not mutually exclusive. Secondly, a lot of people may take issue with the concept of Luffy breaking his promise. The promise to return the hat, that is. And I'm not wild about that argument because promises get broken all the time in One Piece. The action of declaring something does not set it in stone. For example, Ace proudly claimed that Whitebeard would become the next Pirate King, and well, he effed that up, didn't he? And Luffy has certainly failed his own word on many other occasions, but beyond that, and this is going to sound weird, but Shanks dying may not necessarily break that promise. To bring Makino's spawn back into things, if that baby was belonging to a certain red-haired pirate, then you could give the hat to the child as a way of returning it to Shanks. I know it's kind of depressing and a bit meh, but it is paving the path for the future and setting up a new generation. There are definitely satisfactory ways out of this, but the more compelling problem to me is just how obvious the Shanks death seems. I ran a poll on the channel and over 70% of people seem to believe that Shanks will die, and that might not be in keeping with Oda's unpredictable style. Something that seems so clear may actually be an opportunity to subvert that idea with a completely unexpected turn. So we shall see. Just as you shall see this next video. There is always more to learn, discover, and experience about this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.